Hello, everybody. Welcome to part one of our Q&A for the shortlisted short films for our main competition. So our theme this year is kind of a big deal at Northampton Film Festival 2021. And I like to think that we've brought you some events that are pretty big deal. We had a Q&A last night with Duncan Jones's Moon's crew. We've had tonight, we've got Gareth Edwards jetting in from LA to do a Q&A about his film Monsters after a screening of that. We've had Mitch Jenkins and Colin Gowdy talk about showpieces in the show they've done with Alan Moore. We've had, yeah, all sorts of things. We had the producers of Surge talk to us yesterday, 2 Emmy Award winners who are locally based, all of that jazz. But the Northampton Film Festival really is all about the main short film competition, and it's all about local filmmakers and showing off a kind of huge diversity of stuff that happens in Northampton and Northamptonshire. And so I'm very excited to host this part one of the Q&A. If you've got questions for any of the people that we're going to bring up in a minute, you can type them in the comments under wherever you're watching this, if you're watching it live. Yeah, so without further ado, I'm going to bring them all in. There's quite a few of them, so bear with me. Obviously, if we were in a theatre, you know, usually the short film competition, we show all the entries in Northampton Film House who are partnering with us on this. And then we do a big awards ceremony in the Royal Theatre. So I'm imagining that all of you at home are thinking that you are in a theatre and you're clapping as they come in, there's cheers and there's whatever. You can write your cheers in the comments if you want. But it's going to be quite a slow. I'd clap, but that would just seem slightly sarcastic. So I'm going to bring, first of all, so we've got Lara coming in, Lewis, Lawrence, we've got Doug and Sarah. Here we come, clapping and clapping. Oh my gosh, the atmosphere is amazing. Chris and Helen. Hey, here we all are. Oh, and swapping around. Lovely to have you all here. And yes, you know, next year, hopefully, we will all be in a gorgeous cinema or whatever else. Obviously, they're all opening up on Monday, and that's very exciting. But for now, we're just beaming. I mean, we're beaming worldwide, so we can't moan about that. So the first thing I want to get people to do is to tell you who they are, what their film is, a little bit about it, and what their connection to Northampton or Northamptonshire is. So I'm going to go with Lara first, if that's all right, as you're right next to me. Tell us all about your film.
Well, I made my film, Same Time Tomorrow, in the first national lockdown last year, using my family as my actors. It's basically about 2 friends who are still communicating just through like FaceTime and Zoom calls and trying to keep each other company while one of them is trying to make her way through the virus. There's a lot of twists and turns, and yeah. Yeah,
and obviously, yes, you live in Northamptonshire, so that's your connection. It was made here, live there. Brilliant. And Lara's got a film in all of our competitions, so we always have to remind her which Q&A she's doing, like a celebrity. Cool. Yeah, brilliant. Let's go to Lewis next. So yeah, tell us about your film and your connection.
So my film is a short science fiction film called Priority, and it's about a young couple who are experimenting with an app that shows you what the other person is feeling. So it shows you their emotions, kind of like a not too distant futuristic type thing, kind of Black Mirror-esque was what we were trying to go for. And my connection with Northampton is I am a University of Northampton graduate. So I lived in Northampton for just under 4 years, and I was obviously did my bachelor's there. So yeah, that's my sort of connection to Northampton.
Was that a film degree?
Yeah, film, television, and media degree at Northampton University.
Cool, fabulous. Right, let's go to kind of Lawrence and Chris, because you're on the same film, but don't talk over each other because that is the rules of online. So Lawrence, do you want to go first, and then Chris, you can fill in all the gaps that Lawrence has missed.
Sure. Hello, I'm Lawrence. I directed Space Prince. I also was DOP and editor on it because it takes a lot of work to make a short film. Yeah, and lived in Northampton, well, Northamptonshire all my life from Daventry. So and I've been making films here for a long time now. So that's my connection to Northampton. Chris?
Hi, I'm Chris. I wrote and animated the parts of Space Prince that were animated, and I also voiced the. Sorry, I think it is about 50-50, to be honest. I haven't checked the runtime, but I think it is about half and half. And I also voiced the main character. And I similarly, with Lawrence, live in Daventry, make films, etc., etc.
Fabulous. Thank you very much. Let's go to Doug and Sarah, please.
Hi there. Yeah, our film was called Lockdown, and it's a story of a little pink puppet girl who's losing her sponge mind during the first lockdown. It's a parody musical number, and the song was devised by Sarah, and we cobbled it together in about 48 hours, and it was, yeah, loads of fun to do.
We both live in Northampton, and that's our connection.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Yeah, and obviously Lockdown won our lockdown competition appropriately. So when we had to postpone 2020 festival, we ran a lockdown film competition, kind of a big deal in your living room. And we didn't really know at the time that we'd all have to be kind of a big deal in our living room for a lot longer than we first thought. And I feel like I've lost my sponge brain via lots of lockdowns and lots of Q&As recently. But yeah, real good fun. And in fact, yes, Lara, yours was entered into our lockdown film competition as well.
Yeah, the 48-hour one.
Yeah. And then, last but not least, Helen.
Hello. So my film, Time and Again, is a sci-fi drama, and it's about a scientist who loses her family in a really tragic accident and builds a time machine. I won't tell you anymore because it gets a bit spoilery. I'm the writer and lead actor in it, and I have always lived in Northamptonshire, and I live in Northampton now.
Fabulous, love it. Well, so I love I love a story about the making of any film, because I don't know about you. I mean, we shot a film at the beginning of this film festival, and nothing ever goes quite right. And I love a bit of a disaster story or a triumph against adversity story. And so I don't know who'd like to jump in with a bit of a tale of something that went wrong, or some of the challenges maybe you had when making it. You know, did Lockdown have any issues with Puppet not playing ball? I don't know. Actors storming off set.
I think with any kind of puppet production, I think she fell apart halfway through filming and needed some kind of major surgery. But yeah, no, it's really nice because the way how we approached it was we wanted to make it really quickly. And the project that I did or was planning before the lockdown, I spent so long just labouring over every little detail of it, and it never got done. And then I couldn't go and shoot it because it's supposed to be a location piece. And this one, Sarah sent me a song, and effectively I just wanted to make Sarah laugh, so I quickly put together a film to send back to her, and there was no overthinking it.
And I think the only disaster is that you might be able to hear my 3 children in the background. I think that's the only thing. It's like you start filming, recording it, and then it's like because they just can't keep 3 children quiet in a house. So I think that was the only real issue, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just been kind of the rule of lockdown, hasn't it? That you know, you can't, no one can have their own space. Yeah, I mean, yes, it's really interesting. We run these 48-hour film challenges, which is another thing we're doing as part of the film festival, for this very reason that, you know, you can procrastinate, can't say that word, for so long making a film. And sometimes if you think it's good, just do it. And we try and uphold that Screen Northampton, just do things. But yeah, it's hard, because it's hard to put yourself out there. And so, I mean, I always applaud anyone, including yourselves, to put their work out there. Any other, I say disaster stories, it doesn't have to be a disaster. Tell us about the making of your film. I mean, what's the fact that, yeah, go for it, Chris.
To be fair, I think a disaster story and the making of is kind of one and the same for our one. The shining, I mean, well, feel free to interject, but the shining moment for me was when, so we had to get all of the live action footage in like a weekend of nights, which happened during summer. So that was the best time to do night shooting because you have the least amount of time possible and you have to do the worst hours. The location changed. So we then had to re-choreograph the fight at around sort of the 2 a.m. mark on the first night.
Oh, yeah.
busy chain smoking and having a meltdown while Lawrence got on with stuff. And it was all like costume fight scenes, so we decided to make it as difficult as physically possible, while also being freezing cold during summer and tired. And at one point, some kids wandered around and yelled at us because we were doing a fight in costumes. I mean, Lawrence,
Oh no, the only bits I was going to add on was the meltdown didn't happen until about 2 a.m. on Sunday. Well, what would have technically been Monday morning by that point, when I was going, there's still 35 shots left to get, and you went, no, there's not. You best start making that fewer shots, Lawrence. So that was interesting.
Yeah.
And would you do it all again?
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
I was happily.
Of course you would. Anyone else have any particularly low lows at 2 a.m. in the morning in a forest being shouted at by kids? I feel like that's actually something that's probably happened to all filmmakers. I'm sure that's definitely happened to me.
Yeah, I think for priority, the location that we had, we could only film at night time. So we started, and it's set in the day. So obviously that was a trouble in itself. We had to sort of blast lights through to simulate it being in the daytime. But it was, I think we didn't start shooting until sort of 10, 11 o'clock at night. We went all the way through till about 7 or 8 in the morning, I think. So yeah, it's sort of filming through the night is never a good thing. You get very tired very quickly.
Yeah, I used to be I started out life as a location manager, and so I was kind of slightly anti going into studios and stuff. But do you know what? The older I get, the more I'm like, well, let's just build a set and we can just do what we want and black it out and not have any kids running around shouting at us because we're doing weird things, because no one can see you in a studio doing weird things. Yeah, totally. Anyone else want to weigh in on the making of? Yeah, go for it, Helen.
It's not the actual short, but I've been working on the feature-length version of the same story. So I'll throw this one in, because I was just like, oh my God, I forgot about this disaster. So we had an actor, really great actor, and she'd filmed 2 days out of 3. And then she was due to come back in for these other scenes. And I spent 2 years on this script, and I'd really crafted it, and it was exactly where I wanted it to be. And then she broke her wrist badly, as in she was like, Helen, I don't know what to do. She was like, I saw the bone. It was horrendous. And then so we were like, oh no, we're booked in at this location. What do we do? So it was basically an overnight rewrite to write her out of the scene and still make the film work. So I mean, I'm still editing, so it kind of remains to be seen, but it will work. It will somehow work. But these things always happen, don't they? So
yeah, definitely. I mean, we were talking about this on the Q&A with Mitch Jenkins and Colin Gowdy earlier on about showpieces, and again, they had some things where the kind of continuity of things hadn't quite worked out, and so they were having to kind of actually just shoot kind of slightly interesting pickups, which actually was quite ingenious. They both are very ingenious, to cover some of these mistakes. I mean, sometimes though, I know what you mean about having worked on something for forever, crafting and rewriting and whatever, but sometimes these things can work out even better, and you just have to go, yes, that's entirely how I planned it, and just take all the credit for it. So who obviously, I know that Lawrence and Chris and Lara and Doug and Sarah filmed in Northamptonshire, but Helen and Lewis, did you also shoot in Northamptonshire?
No, it's mine was shot in Cambridgeshire.
Leicester mainly, and a little bit of Notts. But I mean, it was just one of those. It was just about finding the right space and finding a studio space. I've done more in Northampton with the feature, and Northamptonshire, which is great. And the crew, again, it was some Northampton, but mainly East Midlands. So staying local, keeping it local. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, so obviously some of you, because we opened up entries ready for the 2020 festival, and so some of these films have been around for quite a long time, some less so. So what other things have those films gone on to do? Is anyone else putting them into other film festivals? Or obviously, Helen, just saying you're making a feature from that short. So, I mean, that short was it always intended as a kind of teaser for the feature?
No.
Oh, okay.
So when I wrote the short, I wasn't very experienced. I just kind of had I'm going to just do this in the very spirit of Screen of Facts.
Yes.
I was like, I'm just going to do this. I didn't know I'd like been in shorts, but I hadn't really written a proper one before, and I'd sort of messed around making things. And then after it did quite well, actually this is a little revival bringing back the short, because it sort of did the festival circuit a couple of years ago. And then everyone kept asking me, what happens next? And I was like, no, nothing, nothing happens next. That story is over. And then I had one of those kind of early morning, half awake, half asleep epiphanies. And I was like, that's what it is. And they're like spiritual cousins. The feature's quite different, quite a lot darker than the short, but the same characters and same story. It just got more developed. So I don't know. It was just, I'd like to say it's due to audience demand.
Yeah, well, yeah, you definitely, yeah, always definitely say that.
So yeah, no, but there was no intention. So it just goes to show what could happen out of a short, really.
Well, yeah, I often think people, do much in the film industry kind of by accident. Also, Lara, obviously you made yours for the lockdown film competition. Have you entered it into anything else?
I've been looking at them, but I haven't actually entered it yet. No.
It can be quite an expensive business,
yeah.
Entering film festivals, but there are, which is why we are free. But there are quite a lot of free ones. You should. What about anyone else? Lewis, when did you actually make your film?
I think it was a couple of years ago now. I'm not sure it's 2018 or 2019. So I mean, yeah, now it's quite a few years ago. But yeah, it did the film festival circuit 2018. End of 2018, I think, and it got selected for a few St. Neots Film Festival, I think, and a few others, I think. So, yeah, it did okay. It's not the best short I've ever, that's done on the circuit, but it did okay. It was quite pleasing how well it did.
I was going to say, what have you done since then? What's the next thing for you as well?
So I was working on another short film, which was kind of a bit like Helen, really. It was kind of hopefully going to be kind of a benchmark to potentially get funding for a feature film, but all that kind of came to a halt as of last year. So I was working on that in 2019, end of 2019 and beginning of 2020, and then obviously when lockdown happened, that sort of stopped. So at the minute, it's kind of waiting to see when we can start that back up, really. But at the minute, I'm kind of writing a few different things. Last year, because of lockdown, I was working more on sort of screenwriting, so entering sort of screenwriting competitions and things like that. That was sort of, couldn't do anything else, couldn't go out and film, so thought, enter more sort of screenwriting competitions and things like that. So it's just kind of seeing what happens after lockdown, really, and once we get it sort of back to normal.
Oh, and I was going to say, yeah, screenwriting competitions. How do you find those? Do you find those really useful? I'm not a screenwriter, but I think it's kind of an interesting concept to put in writing to a festival.
Yeah, it's a bit different than just entering just a film, film that you've made and you enter that. It feels a lot more personal because obviously you're a sort of filmmaking is kind of a collaborative process, whereas screenwriting is very solo. And so you feel like if you get any feedback or anything, it kind of feels a little bit more personal. Or if you don't quite get through to the next stage, you kind of take it a little bit more to heart. But no, it's been quite fun, especially like I said, not being able to film. It's kind of an outlet of creativity. It's kind of it's kind of kept me going over lockdown, if I'm honest.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, lockdown has obviously been rubbish, but equally, there's there has been lots of opportunities to maybe take stock or have a bit of writing time that you just might never have had. Some people have been more busy than ever, so actually that's not true. But, it's, Well, so Chris and Lawrence, I've literally forgotten what my question was about that. What's happened with Space Prince since when did you make it, and has it done anything else since?
As Space Prince was less a labour of love and more a labour of obligation at one point.
It was a labour of labour.
Just labour. Yeah. Okay.
I think the biggest thing that happened to it was getting moved from one hard drive to another, probably at one point. that might have been a big moment for it. We've done loads of stuff since. It just became this thing that we started and then we couldn't finish. And Chris had done like 1 million hours of drawing, and Helen did those beautiful background artwork. And it's like, oh God, we do have to finish this then. And so it kind of got itself done, but in the middle we had other stuff.
We should specify this is Helen McLaughlin, just because there's a Helen in this chat.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, so like, you know, Helen McLaughlin did that, all the really beautiful background art that you see, and you know, and Chris is wonderful.
Fun fact: I think it's the YouTube tile thing. That illustration is a thing that Helen McLaughlin did. I believe I did the black rectangle over the alien's penis, but everything else was all her.
But yeah, so there's a you know, so I mean we're looking to do things, but between sort of the middle of finishing it and going on to stuff, we did Stranger, which was like the multi-part, you know, choose your own adventure thing that came out a week before Bandersnatch, which went terribly well. And obviously, you know, Chris has been doing comic stuff. I've, you know, been sort of planning out bits and bobs, and now we've actually had to have a conversation about Space Prince with a bit of time between finishing it and now. You know, we might try and sort of, go for it.
I was just going to say, yeah, I think we are intending to put together pitch stuff, because although it's like in short film thing, we kind of wrote it as like a pilot for a series that could stand alone as a one-off. But I think the next sort of step for us is sort of putting together like pitch material and all the stuff that comes with that, and then start shamelessly harassing companies.
Shamelessly.
Yeah, shameless, yes. Well, yeah, and I think sometimes it can be hard when you've been through, you know, when it's been really hard to finish something. I think it can, sometimes a bit of distance, a bit of time is a good thing to come back to it. And, you know, I know a lot of film festivals obviously like to have, they only allow you to put in films in the last year, 2 years that you've made, whereas we decided very much to not have that, because actually things happen and sometimes films get made but they don't get shown for whatever reason. It doesn't mean that they don't deserve to be shown. So I think more film festivals should do that, but whatever.
I'm very happy you feel like that.
Yeah, well, you know, there's just some classics in the cupboard. Oh, that's a
night for next
category. Yeah. And I think last but not least, I've kind of lost where I'm going, but yeah, Doug and Sarah, have you done anything with lockdown? Kind of since the lockdown film competition, or just, I know you put it on social media a lot.
Yeah, it was kind of made initially as a bit of a viral film for social media, and then it got picked up by you guys, and BBC showed it, and a web TV show picked it up, and that kind of thing.
It kind of, with the children obviously being in the house as well, I tend to make up songs for them anyway. And so I was sending Doug all these different songs, just we were having a bit of a laugh and seeing what would work. And
so almost like on every fortnight, Sarah sends me about 3 songs as Priscilla, just singing random songs. And I think
one was Don't Stand So Close to Me by the Police. Don't stand so close to me. And it was just, as I say, there were songs going around the house, and I said, oh, here's another one that made my children laugh. It might make other people laugh.
So we probably, when life's back to normal and we all really, really long for the days of lockdown, and we miss it so much. I'll do a nostalgic album release of all these songs, and we can all look back on it in like 20 years ago. Oh, I remember when lockdown was all that.
And then my children would go, no more, I've heard it too many times.
But what was quite fun was for this film festival, cutting a trailer for the film as a horror film was loads of fun. And I had so much feedback off that I'm now in talks and development with a friend of mine about doing a puppet horror film, and that's going to be
amazing.
Yeah,
that's I don't think there's been a puppet horror before. Which don't put it on the internet. Oh God. Well, we've had a few questions come in, so I feel like we should go to those. So this is an uber long one, so it might come up uber small on your screen, but I'll read it for you. So this is from the writer, I believe, of Priority. Is that right? Yes, Cara. So I think, Lewis, you can't answer this one because it's about writers. So question to everyone as the writer of Priority is, how do you approach writing your screenplay? And did you come across any particular difficulties while writing it? I love, as you know, I love a difficulty story. Love the struggle. So Chris, you wrote Space Prince, that's right, isn't it? Difficulties?
Yeah, I mean, I should clarify. Me and Lawrence like developed the story and the characters together. I just physically wrote the script and the scene description and stuff. Difficulties. I think we struggled a little bit with the main character deciding what to do with them, because he's kind of a jerk. There's no real nice way to put about it, and he treats the other character quite meanly. So just sort of like finding that balance between trying to like accurately depict like I really don't want to say banter, but I've already said it to say the word I don't want to say, but yeah. Friends, you know, making fun of each other in a humorous way. There isn't a shorter way to say that expression. Was an interesting balancing act, I think. And also then logistics for it being animated as well as live action, I think, was sort of the main troubles we had when we were writing.
I think one of the other things I'd chip in on that and say is that I think one of the great struggles we had was by the time we'd got about halfway through making this thing, as it took so long to do, we looked back at the script and went, that wasn't a great place to start from.
Yeah.
If we'd done it all over again from 2 years later, there would have been it would have been approached much more differently, you know, because we had this fun idea. We had this idea that we threw between each other that made us laugh. And then we sort of set about making a story out of that. And I think after some long discussion, about a year and a half after having made it and being only what we later discovered was a third of the way through the project, was that we would have just started from a different not a central point, but you know, we were very sort of objective layer in how we'd come to the story. You know, we like gags, we like jokes, we like these things. We don't want it to be too serious. But that was the inherent difficulty in making this character likable, is that we then had to give him a personality. So we had to sort of make a joke into a person rather than making a joke with a sort of fully fleshed out character. Which was fun. That was fun to find out when you felt really obligated to finish the film.
Yes. And Helen, I mean, we met, you know, with your kind of actor hat on, I think. I mean, writing, is that quite new for you, or is it just that we only ever talked about
newish,
acting?
Yeah, and was definitely new when I wrote this short. In fact, like I realised how little I knew now, and would do loads of things differently. But actually, like that was a weird. There's a weird joy in doing things you know nothing about and sort of figure. I wrote my script in Word, and I just remember people being like, "Oh, why did you do that?" And you know, now I've got proper formatting and things like that. But I don't know. I didn't have like massive difficulty with the script of the short because it was. I suppose I let it brew for quite a long time. Like I had this idea, and then I remember going to lunch with a friend of mine and being like, I've got this idea for a film. I said, I don't think anyone would watch it apart from me. And then I just said, and she was like, that sounds great. You should, you know, just do it. So I just did. However, the feature, like it's weird. It's like knowledge can make things so great. So I'm in between writing the short and writing the feature. I've like gone and sort of self-taught a lot and just wrote a lot more. And also it's writing long form, which is crazy and so much more difficult. And I did a lot of I can really identify with what Lawrence said, because like about where does your film start, because I wrote, I think where the feature now starts, there was a good 15-20 pages that I eventually looked at, and I think a very good friend said to me in a very brutal way, they're like, I don't think you need this, and I was like, you're right. You know, and then you suddenly look at it and you go, and it's when you make loads of cuts and then you go, I don't miss that. And that's when you kind of know that it's right. But I think it's just, I don't know, loads of difficulties, but in overcoming the difficulties is like the only way you're really going to learn and grow. So I'm kind of all for embracing any things that are hard.
Well, yeah, there was a lovely phrase that, if you want to hear some positivity about making film and passion, then I'd really recommend the Q&A we did with Paul Williams. And he said, and I wrote it down on a little bit of paper, and I'm going to keep it on my desk. And it says, there's magic in the failure. And I was like, oh, yeah, there is. And I think with film, we all, I mean, there's at least one feeling of failure, I think, associated with any one film making process. And I like that phrase. I'm going to, I don't know, tattoo it on my forehead or something. But Lara, how did you find the writing and stuff? Writing easy for you, difficult?
Well, I never really tried writing that much before. But having to write something that will fit within the lockdown guidelines was really difficult, because obviously I couldn't really go to many locations. The only place I could really film was my house. So that made it difficult, but that's how I built the story, was around only being able to talk to people from your own home and through FaceTime and all that. So I think that actually helped me. The restrictions actually kind of helped actually think of an idea. Yeah,
I guess it's that whole kind of 48-hour challenge mentality, isn't it, actually, that because you can literally write about anything. You can make stuff up, you can have reality, whatever. And so actually, where on earth do you start? And actually going, right, well, I'm just confined to this room is quite helpful in many ways. We've got another question come in. So this is from Adrian, who has put a film into our 48-hour film challenge, and has, in fact, I think, yes, 2 films, and is in our winners category with those 2 films. So there are multiple genres mentioned. Do the filmmakers start with a favourite genre and build a story, or does the idea, story, character come kind of first? Ooh, what's your process, people? Share everything. Should we go to Lewis first? I mean, sorry, I was putting you on a.
No, fine. I can't remember who coined it, but there was a writer who coined that the best stories come from characters, and I think that's what I always try to start with. Normally, I have a character or an idea sort of bouncing around my head, or I see someone or something, sort of gives me inspiration, and I always think if something sticks with me, if an idea or a character sticks in my head for longer than a couple of weeks, then I have to write about it. So, and that's kind of, and I think the story comes from that character, and it naturally flows into a genre, I think. I've obviously tried to write genre pieces in the past, so sort of writing something specifically for a Western or something like that, but I think the best stories have normally been based on the characters, and kind of it naturally, the world around them naturally builds itself, I think, around that character. I don't know whether anybody else has a different process.
Yeah. Who wants to disagree? No, you don't have to disagree, but who wants to go next?
Well, with lockdown, it's obviously a very scary time. So that's sort of where I got mine from, thinking, well, it's supposed to not be a very nice time, so I'm going to make it a scary film. But yeah, I know that Doug and Sarah, you sort of went the opposite of that. You tried to bring some light to the situation, but I went the opposite of that and thought, this is scary, so make a horror.
Well, with ours, we had the children and I carried on going to school or what have you, because I work at the hospital. And so their main thing was that they couldn't go to clubs, they couldn't have friends round, and they couldn't go to the park on the swings and things like that. And so I just took what they told me they were missing. And our characters, even though when we won the lockdown competition, she was having champagne. Yeah, we do believe she is a child. So it was obviously non-alcoholic. But we tend to listen to what the children say and bounce ideas off them, because when we've done live shows with some of Doug's puppets, they're the audience. I know adults like puppet shows as well, but the children need to be interested. And so I use mine as an audience first and see if it works, and if it does, send ideas to Doug and vice versa. And so that's how we dealt with it.
So within the stuff that Sarah sent me, the character was pretty much in there. She sang it, she voiced it, and so the personality of the character was in there. And so far as the story went, it was made in about the first 2 or 3 weeks of lockdown, so everything was still new and shiny. And
no toilet roll.
Yeah, no toilet rolls. That was a big thing. That was news. singing happy birthday twice to wash your hands, and all those kind of messages were coming out. So the story was basically trying to parody all of this stuff, trying to get all this new information that we all had and just kind of make all these little vignettes and make something out of that. And I think your song was about 3 minutes long, and effectively I set up all these little scenarios, like she's colouring in rainbows for the NHS workers at the table. And so that was filmed for 3 minutes, me listening to this song, and then she's washing her hands in the bathroom for 3 minutes, then she's in the bathroom with thing. And so by the end of this day, I'm going crazy because I've listened to this song thousands of times. And then then can cut it all together and figure out the best way to make it all flow after that. But yeah, that's how our story kind of came out of the character that was there.
Cool. I'm interested to hear Chris and Lawrence's answer to this one, because you make. I mean, I love the stuff you make, but there's some nuts stuff in there.
Well, go on. You go first.
Okay, I'll go and you can correct sort of. But I'd say we actually kind of go the opposite way. I think we tend to start with like a situation or like a twist or something, and then the characters kind of just like come on. I think this is kind of like a advantage of like working with someone that you've known since you're like 14. We have a lot of like similar points of references, so I think we tend to like have a starting point, like, you know, friend helping their friend with a PC problem, and then the PC is actually possessed by a demon, or friends talking about the anime stuff that they really like, but one of them is, you know, the defender of the earth, and the only reason he defends the earth is because he really likes anime and manga. And then from those like weird places, the characters just kind of the people that we've sort of like met just kind of naturally work their way in. Case in point, Space Prince, the character Milner is played unsurprisingly by our friend Chris Milner, nickname Milner.
Cool. Yeah,
it's one of those things where I also think like Chris and I love the visual. It's even for a writer, Chris loves the visual, I think, more than anything else in some cases. Like, not obviously more than anything else, but you know what I mean? Like, we're very visually orientated. And like, you know, we have 15 years of shorthand. That's a long time of like all these shared reference points and things. And we know what we want to make. And so the genre stuff tends to come, the genre has for a long time come first. But even when now, where we're doing a lot more character-based stuff, the genre just sort of slips in the front anyway, because I think once you start once you start creating those characters, there's so much trope around them from like years of, you know, consuming stuff and knowing it, and you start having stuff built up around it that you just know that either you're going to end up with this thing that I know about and I have seen and I would love to make something like that, already has its rules and preconceptions, or you sort of end up in that weird Edgar Wright sense where it's like, I love this thing, but what if it was over here, and we sort of, you know, push them together, and then you find interesting characters in that.
I think sorry, the last thing I would say about it, but I think also like the situation also, especially in short form, like kind of dictates the kind of characters you write. So like if we're going to write a story about, again, like one of the characters, you know, two friends, one of whom is quite like overbearing or like quite forward, then by default the other friend is probably going to be quite sort of like reserved or like unassuming. At which point it's like, well, we know like what those kind of people look like. They look a lot like our friend Milner, so they kind of come out from the situation in that regard as well, I think. Yeah,
like you're saying, the situation starts to bear down on the perhaps the power dynamic in the room. But I mean, it's not super rote, because you know, you're like, oh, they're these two friends, and one of them's like defender of the universe, but really he's lazy and apathetic, which is just all of the terrible things for a superhero. He's really lazy and apathetic and kind of hates people, and that was part of the fun. But you know, that's also where I think we like jokes more than anything else, and we thought that was funny. So that's how it got in.
It's great. It's like everyone's got quite a different approach. Does anyone else want to weigh in on this one? I've forgotten who we've talked to.
I'll weigh in.
Go for it.
I probably would echo probably most strongly what Lewis has said. I don't think I've never gone in with a genre. It usually just comes out of some kind of what if type scenario. I don't know if that's like being an actor as well, primarily. Like, what if, and out of what if, I usually have a character, usually a situation, and then I've read like a lot that says, and I think I believe this, is that when you write, you put so much of yourself into it that I think, you know, you automatically just start to have quite a lot of feelings, and it sort of points it in the direction of a genre when you have that what if idea, because it, like what Lara was saying, she was like, lockdown, it's really scary. So it makes me think of a horror film, or actually lockdown, the experience is quite different. And so whatever your feelings on the subject start really lending themselves to that situation and that angle, and then it sort of comes quite organically out of that, I think.
Yeah, do you know what? I've never tried to write anything. I don't know. I like the idea, but I don't know. Maybe one day, and then I'll just see how unbelievably difficult it is, and I'll stop. We've got another question come in, which obviously we did talk about this a bit at the beginning. Well, because I love a challenge or a disaster or whatever else. But where is it? There we are. And so, what were the biggest challenges you all faced with your films, and how did you overcome them? So I don't know if there's something we haven't talked about, something you want to talk about a bit more, or there's something else maybe about just your filmmaking in general that you want to talk about, the kind of challenges you faced. That would be great. What's been? Oh, go for it, Lawrence. I assume that was a volunteer.
That was there's always a story about difficulty whenever filmmaking is concerned. I think, like, especially like Space Prince was just like it is one of those things that went on and on. But you know, to be more positive about it, there were a lot of great challenges that were great things to try out. I mean, working with the wrestlers, the Win Wrestler guys, you know, they're the I'm trying to remember, it's Wrestling in Northampton. I can't remember the name of the acronym. Really great bunch of guys. So when everything's eased and you can go see them because they're fantastic. You know, sort of choreographing fight scenes was something that I'd always wanted to do and always wanted to get in and amongst, and it's great to sort of be with some people who go like, this is how it works, and you go like, yeah, do that, and they, you know, and it was a lot that it was a new challenge in this way of people going like, we could do this thing. I went, I have no idea what that is, you know, and that idea of coming in with something where you go like, I have a very defined notion of what I want, and then they show you stuff, you're like, I didn't know that existed. So that was a really fun challenge in its own right, you know, especially being able to say, throw that guy over that wall again. Do it again, it's great. And they're like, do you need to see it again? I'm like, I need to see that 3 or 4 times a day.
Yeah.
But you know, it also, the other thing is that idea of rehearsing something like that and shooting it and going, I think I've got this nailed, and then getting it to set and going like, oh, maybe this needs to be tweaked, maybe this isn't quite how I thought it was, do I shoot it like this? It was great fun to do, but the only thing I came out the other side knowing was like, this was the first time I did it and I didn't know what I was doing. And sort of like, the weirdest thing is the fight scene had dialogue in it, and oh my god, I'd go back now and just completely eradicate all the dialogue from it. Like, it just doesn't, it's not that it doesn't work or it couldn't work, but we'd never done it before, so we didn't know what would fit into that area. And so that was a great learning experience, as much as I get to look at it and go, it doesn't work, but I do feel like I know what I do next time, which is really good. I'll let Chris take something now.
I mean, my answer is pretty boring, to be honest. Just so on Space Prince, like, that was the longest thing I'd animated at that point, and it was also the first time I'd animated anything more than people just talking. So I hadn't really sort of anticipated like the difficulties that would throw up when we were writing, because, you know, in the writing stage, you're just like, oh, well, you know, you just write the best story, and then you know, everything is in service of the story, and then you realize you have to service that story. It's like, why did I write somebody throwing a car? Why did I write smoke clouds? Why did I write all these things that I've never drawn, let alone draw 24 times to create the illusion of movement? Why did I do this? But being forced to do it did make me, you know, better at drawing like motion. It made me get better at drawing walk cycles, which, again, it's a lot of boring stuff, but it is good fundamentals that I'd kind of skipped out on in the past. So that was good.
So basically, back yourself in a corner, as I think Lauren said earlier, and then you've just got to deliver. Great. Anyone else want to? Anyone else want to wait? Oh yeah, go for it, Doug. Oh, sorry, is that Doug? Go for it.
Well, puppeteering is quite challenging anyway, because you kind of got to be out of shot, be in a really tiny, uncomfortable space, got one eye on a monitor, trying to figure out what you're doing, and so yeah, just trying to overcome any of those things to get any of the shots done was quite challenging. There's a bit over there where she was colouring in her things. I had to take a dining room chair apart so I could come up through the middle of it. My face was pressed against the carpet sideways as you're trying to look at a laptop monitor. But yeah, just generally puppeteering is a bit of a pain like that. If you're working with a team, you've always got someone's armpit kind of in your face, and so yeah, it's lovely, great.
Yeah, no, yes, I can imagine, to be honest. That is quite a nightmare.
It's quite a friendly thing. You see everyone's really close by the end of it.
Yeah. Anybody else on that, on a challenge?
I think funding is always a big challenge. To getting money, getting backing, getting people to kind of, especially if it's a passion project or something that maybe doesn't have a big commercial side to it. I think getting people to kind of believe in your project and getting them to fund your project or help out in any way they can, I think that can be a challenge. I think that's probably the biggest challenge I face making sort of short films is just getting backing or funding, or locations as well. Especially if you're relying on the charity of others, getting them, you'll line up a location and then the day before they'll turn around and say, oh, sorry, you can't have it anymore. And then you've got 10 people, casting crew who are all ready to go, and you've got to figure out what you're going to do and pull another location from nowhere, essentially. So I think funding is always a big challenge when it comes to sort of short films and independent films.
Yeah, definitely.
I would just echo that by specifically saying crowdfunding.
Yeah.
Crowdfunding's amazing, and and if you've got nowhere else to go, like, it's great because it really like levels the playing field in that sense. So in some ways, I love it, but in my experience of it, it's a little bit like doing a full-time job when you usually already have one, and just to get that going. And then also, I think you do have to deal with managing expectations. So even though many times I've kind of like, when I've done crowdfunders, I've been like, and then the film will be roughly finished then. About a week after filming, because you'll obviously publicize all that, and you'll always get people like, so is the film ready yet? And you're like, no, it's not. And that's just a real challenge, because as long as you have all of the sort of creative things that you're doing with like post-production and stuff, but then you're also managing that, and obviously you're really grateful for people chipping in and funding, but it's that kind of realization that the process is much longer than they might think is a challenge, big challenge.
Yeah, no, definitely agree. Yeah, yes, I mean, Screen Northants, obviously we've shot 3 feature films, and and the post, and they took quite a lot of time, a lot of effort, and then the post process is just like the whole thing again. And it's if you've got very little money, and I think it's and you say, like you say, it's a full crowdfunding full-time job, because you're just marketing something. It's just marketing. It's not. I think a lot of people kind of go, oh, crowdfunding, I'll put something on a crowdfunding site and it'll just automatically get money. It was actually interesting because talking to Mitch Jenkins about Showpieces, they crowdfunded, and they were like, we put out for, I don't know, 20 grand, and we got, 50 grand within a few days. And I'm like, I don't think that's the normal story. But, you're just trying to market, this whole project, which, whole teams of people do normally. We're talking of, actually, so obviously we know lockdown was kind of a 48-hour kind of vibe. I mean, Laros, your film was again quite a short space of time because you were making it for a competition that we set a deadline for. And I think we've kind of got a sense of it with Lawrence and Chris. But I mean, Lewis, how i.e. it made there's a little gap. Lewis, how long? What was the process of kind of time-wise from coming up with the idea?
Priority was made for a challenge as well, so it was made.
okay.
It was made over a weekend, so a single weekend. We started on the Friday evening at about 8 o'clock, I think, and it had to be in by 8 o'clock Monday morning or something like that. I can't think the exact time. I can't remember. It was 48 or 60 hours. A lot of it was. We did that year. We did about 3 or 4 different challenges. So, so yeah, that was it was, but it was for a challenge. So yeah, so it was done over a single weekend essentially. Filming was over Friday night into Saturday morning. I think that's right, and then editing took place sort of all day Saturday and some reshoots and stuff, and then Sunday, and then yeah, it had to be handed in.
Well, Helen, what was your from having the script complete to having the film complete? What was kind of your timeline?
Oh, I don't know about with script complete, because that was definitely like I kind of had this script and then I was like, I don't know if I'm going to show this to anyone, you know what I mean? So there was definitely a hiatus there. Once we'd done the crowdfunder and filmed, I remember we filmed for 3 days, and then I think we just did one little pickup. So that was in terms of filming, and then yeah, post-production was probably about a year. It was like because it was like a lot of favor. I didn't like personally edit, or I didn't personally do those things, which I'm learning now on my feature. But I didn't personally do those things, so it was a lot of like trying to work in little favors or low fees for people, and so they were working around other jobs. So as much as you're kind of like, I really want you to prioritize my short, it's really difficult because you obviously have to appreciate that other people have their paid jobs that they do to sort of keep the lights on. So that took like quite a lot longer. And now I'm from the other side really seeing why like post-production is such a mammoth task, and massive respect for people who do it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, nuts. Well, yes, we had a Q&A yesterday, which any of the Q&As, all of this as well, will become a video on our Screen Northants YouTube. We had a Q&A with Tim Hands yesterday, who has done lots of sound post work, including lots of things on the Dark Crystal, which it was really interesting hearing about how they worked with puppets and sound and whatever else. But just just looking at the crazy amount of just the sound work and how long that took, post is a whole nother world. We're near the end. We've only got 6 minutes left. So I've got quite a lot of questions. What am I gonna I've got, I'm going to ask a few questions, and then you can just choose which one you want to answer. Because for some people, they're kind of different. Because I know some people do kind of just starting out in film. So for some people, film is kind of a hobby, and some people it's their career. But so there's kind of two things. I like to know how people got into doing this. Why were you drawn to this? Why do you want to do film? And yeah, what do you have kind of coming up next? What's something that you're working on? But you can just tell us a bit about your life in film. That's what I'm asking. Lara, do you want to go first?
Well, I, before film, wanted to be an actress. But I actually went to a summer camp in LA, which was amazing. It was at the New York Film Academy. And a lot of the time I was watching the filmmakers and thought, I kind of want to do that. And I wanted to have control. And so I'm in college right now studying film. I'm going to Bournemouth Uni in September to do film again, to try and make it more of a career. But as you can see from my Same Time Tomorrow, I did act in it. Not just because it was lockdown, I couldn't get any other actors, but yeah, I did do that. But I'm currently working on a short comedy called Lemonade Stand, which should be coming out at the end of May, hopefully. But I think that one was a lot easier. I completely cut all the sound out of that because I struggled with it so much on my other films and getting it all to match up. So it's a silent film. It's got just music. And yeah, that's my next thing.
I think this is a great thing. If you know that something, like with the 48-hour film challenges, we always say, look, if you can't edit, why not try and do something one shot? We'll think that's massively impressive. We won't know it's because you can't edit it. That's fine. And actually, why not make it, a silent film if actually sound is just not your forte? And don't put it on the internet or anything, because then no one will ever know. Oh well. But What do you want to plug, Lara, your YouTube or wherever people can see stuff?
Yeah, my YouTube has all my films. It's just Lara Sugden. And my Instagram is @filmedbylara. So yeah, go follow me.
Great. And then yeah, Lewis, like same random questions about film to you.
I've always loved film. I can't remember a time when I didn't love film, to be fair. So it was just naturally got into sort of, I did media at college and then went and did film and TV and media at university, and I teach at college level in film, television, and photography and things like that. So yeah, I've always kind of had a passion for film and TV and things like that. And what was the other question? What I'm working on currently?
Yes.
So I'm currently working on a stage play, which is a little bit different, a little bit of a different term to film, but that's what I'm currently working on at the minute. A friend of mine, Callum Foreman, he's done a lot of acting, done a lot of acting on my films, and he's recently been doing more sort of stage stuff, and we kind of have, you know, batting around ideas and things like that. So I'm currently writing a stage play, and hopefully looking to write. I'm currently writing a experimental feature film that's a bit more kind of, I'd say it's probably a bit more art house than it is narrative, just as a way to, an easy way for me to go out and film and not have to worry about this sort of linear narrative story. It's kind of, I can just go out with me and an actor, and we don't have to worry about having a big crew or big, you know, big sets or budget or anything like that. It's more sort of experimental. So that's kind of what I'm working on at the minute.
Cool. And do you want to plug any YouTube channels or wherever people can see work?
Yeah, Lewis Pavlovich is basically, if you type that in anywhere, it's at Lewis Pavlovich on Instagram. It's Lewis Pavlovich on YouTube, and it's just type in Lewis Pavlovich and you'll find me.
Fabulous. Good. Brilliant. And then let's go to Lawrence.
There we go. I'm unmuted now. Yeah, I don't know. I like films and I kind of like making them, I guess. So that's what happens. Yeah. Oh, good. Now I've got to do the plugging thing, which I'm so bad at. So I'm terrible with social media, so I wouldn't bother following me on any of that. Otherwise, you've just got an extra empty thing you're not paying attention to. And I can see Becky over there. I can see you doing that thing you do, but I am bad at it, and I will just openly say it. What I'm working on, though, I am making more films. So, like I've said, I've got a series of short films I'm working on that's an actual series. So whether it's a series or not, I don't really know. Which Chris and I have at least one of them we're going to be working together on properly, but I thought I should actually learn to write things because I need to stop going, Chris, put words on paper, and I will then look at them. And then I don't even look at them. I just go, that's fine. So yeah, there's that, and just, you know, lots more practice writing, and maybe hopefully something a bit longer and a bit bigger when I've a little while from now, a little bit from now, because I've got plans. Good. That's all, as long as you've got plans, it's all good. Let's go to Doug and Sarah. So yeah, how did you get into this and what's next?
When I studied at drama school and worked in theatre for a little bit, and then moved back to Northampton and was out of work for a long time. So I set up These Guys Theatre Company, and mainly to keep myself busy and writing stage plays and just, as I say, keeping busy so that all your training kept up to date and what have you, and so that your CV also had that you've been doing plays, not professionally, but you've still been doing stuff. And that was in 2003 when I set up These Guys, and we're still going strong, although last year we couldn't really do much on stage, so we've been doing lots of short films on our YouTube channel, which is These Guys Theatre Company. And fingers crossed we can get back on stage, or maybe even rehearse next month. But the children group are back, so it's lovely to see them face to face, me teaching them what I was taught at drama school. And again, with the writing, it's different than on screen for theatre. So that's what I'm doing at the moment, and I'm not sure what Doug's up to.
I started out, well, my original passion was to do puppetry and puppet building and puppeteering, and I did that right through my childhood and teenage years. And by the time I got to university, I had done a few auditions with the Jim Henson Company and got done training with the Jim Henson Company as a puppeteer, and that was fantastic. But I was also already at university doing visual effects and animation, And so that then kind of ended up having to take the focus for a long time. And so that became my career, doing visual effects and animation. I started up my own company doing visual effects and animation and design work. And so puppetry kind of was a sideline thing for a long time. And then really nicely over the last 5 years or so, it started coming back out, and I've been doing more and more and more. And I've got a very active following on Instagram, and they're all absolutely lovely. And I can't believe how lucky I am with such lovely people just supporting me and being lovely about the puppetry work. So projects in the pipeline, there's lots of puppetry projects, the horror film, Things with Sarah, parody songs, loads of other things. And visual effects wise, I've got quite a lot over the next year to do, so I don't know how I'm going to fit it all together. There's all sorts of things going on. Yeah.
Right. Do you want to give us your Instagram account if you want some more followers, maybe?
Okay. Well, for the Hold the Foam, which is the puppetry stuff, it's on Instagram. It's hold.the.foam, and on Twitter it's just Hold the Foam. You can do your
Twitter is Guys These on Twitter, but on we're on Facebook and we're on YouTube. We're not on Instagram, I'm afraid.
Fair enough.
You've got more followers than me. But...
Cool. And then let's go to Chris.
Well, I think my film motivations are pretty similar to Lawrence. Liked film, so made film. When I do remember, like, towards the end of when I was at uni, I kind of rediscovered my love of like cartoons and stuff. So I started drawing more, and then really like all the illustration-y stuff I've done has been like after graduation. Actually, and I graduated from Bournemouth University as well, so good pick, Laura. What were the other questions? Yeah, so that's how did filming yourself?
Yeah. Yeah, and then what are you working on?
At the minute, I'm working on a comic, like a web comic that I'm intending to be a series-ish. It's called Wanted, Jack and Die. The log line is it's a ghost and a guy who was framed for killing her, going around looking for the actual killer, but they don't have any leads. So it's basically them going around solving murders and mysteries, trying to find this person. It's like Victorian era stuff, because drawing stuff in the past I thought would be a good idea than having lots of modern references that I could draw from, just make things more difficult for myself again.
Cool. Brilliant. Perfect. So are you online anywhere? Can anyone see anything of stuff you've done?
All my stuffs, or links to all my stuff at least, is on my website, blackandwhitecomic.com. It's probably the best way to find me.
Great. Perfect. And last but not least, Helen, how did you get into film and what are you doing next?
Okay, so I think I've talked about what I'm doing next, so I'm gonna start that one. But in terms of how I got in thinking about writing and filmmaking, it probably came out of just a lot of frustration as an actor. For women, there's not these interesting, complex parts that, it's taking a long time to change that. So I think it was just from that kind of going, well, I'm going to write some, because I got really frustrated as well with sometimes I like kind of try and gently like ask people or call people out a little bit about like usually. Oh God, I've realised I'm in a room full of like male writers as well. So not to say any of you are doing this, but sometimes I speak to like male writers and I'm like, oh, I don't know, is this how you want this character to come across, or have we seen enough of that? Or what about something different? And they kind of go, don't worry, Helen, she's a badass in the end. And I'm like, that's not really what I said. I just think it's like finding parts that are complex and layered and just not the characters that you always see. So that's why I started writing, and then I just have found like a love for it. And what's really interesting is once you start making that work, then you also start attracting, as an actor, you start playing in that stuff, you get attracting other like-minded people. So I've actually had the opportunity to play lots more interesting rounded roles since then as well. So yeah, that's why that's why I started down the filmmaking writing route.
Interesting. Well, thank you very much. We've run over, which is great. Thank you very much for joining me today. Obviously, if you're watching this live, you can now, if you haven't already, go onto the Northampton Film Festival Eventive site. And the easiest way, if you're not on our social media, to find the link is just go to northamptonfilmfestival.co.uk, and there's one there. So I don't have to spell out Eventive for you. Go and watch the films. They're all free. Yeah, we'll be tuning in live again on Wednesday evening to announce the winners. Exciting. And we've got another one of these at 4 o'clock with some of our other filmmakers. So I'm going to just play a little video to end, which is from one of the judges of this short film competition. So let's everyone do a really awkward wave while I get that queued up. And thanks, everyone. Bye. Hello.
Well, the moment has finally arrived, the Northampton Film Festival. I was so proud to be a judge on it and so honoured to be given the chance to watch so many fantastic, high-quality films. Good luck to the finalists, well done to the winners, and have an amazing time watching such a brilliant body of work. Lots of love from Julie Esmond-Dalsh.